Hello, my people. Before we get started on today's podcast, I want to give a thank you to everyone thus far who has subscribed or followed the Angel of Words podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you're getting your podcast content. We appreciate it. Now, that being said, if this is your first time or you have forgotten to click on that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, please do so. And don't be shy to share with your friends because we make these podcasts to motivate and inspire you. Everyone has a story. Everyone has had to overcome some kind of adversity. And my purpose is to bring their stories to you. No matter your age, no matter your sexual orientation, your creed, your color, what you think about yourself. You are worthy. And here at the Angel of Words podcast, we want to make sure that you have something to listen to, something to view that'll make you feel a little bit better about yourself and make you feel like you're not out there alone, struggling alone with whatever it is that is going through your life. Now, that being said, today, on the Angel of Words podcast, we have emergency room physician assistant Rebecca Vasquez coming to drop the knowledge, coming to let us know how she feels about the whole coronavirus pandemic being behind enemy lines. On deck on the Angel of Words podcast. Hello and welcome to the Angel of Words podcast. And today we have Rebecca Vasquez, emergency medicine physician assistant at St. Jude's Round Rock Hospital out in the Austin, Texas area, and a true patriot who is not afraid to wear her mask because it is like the AR-15 of this war that we're fighting against this invisible enemy. How you doing, Rebecca? How's everything? Thank you for your time.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's good to have you here. There's a lot of things going on, especially out where you are in Texas. When you see people, when you see the state opening up amidst rising corona cases, does it give someone such as yourself that's in the medical field anxiety? Like, how does that make you feel when you see that things aren't really truly contained and, everything's kind of going back to normal?
Yes, absolutely. It is very, very anxious. With this whole reopening all over the place, I feel like we've definitely been doing this way too early, and we still have a lot of sick people coming into the emergency room, definitely continued spread of the virus, and so it's really just terrifying to see things start to reopen because I think it's just going to end up making this so much worse for us.
Yeah. I mean, they're talking about a second wave and things of that nature. And from, some of the research that I've been doing, I mean, Texas seems to be a little bit understaffed when it comes to physicians. Does that make your job as a physician's assistant, a little tougher?
So, in all honesty, we haven't been hit as hard in Austin, Texas, compared to some of the other places like Houston and Dallas. So the numbers aren't as bad here. So it's a very strange thing in our emergency room right now. The overall volume that we normally see because of the unfortunate state of, medical care in this country, a lot of people utilize the emergency room as their primary care doctor's office. So there's a large majority of people that we normally see on a regular basis in the emergency room that, things that you would think somebody would just go to see their primary care doctor for. And so because of, this huge scare with the virus being out there, our overall volume has significantly decreased. And so we're seeing way less people than what we normally see. But the people that are in the emergency room are truly sick, very, very sick, and require, a lot of care. So it's a very strange dynamic that's going on in the emergency room. Definitely nothing like what, the healthcare providers are dealing with in New York City. I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues that I've worked with in the past in New York City, and what they've been experiencing is, just completely opposite, with just nonstop having, the volume just completely full and just nowhere to put anybody.
Now, you spoke about the healthcare system. I mean, it seems to be broken here in the United States. We weren't really ready for this. Like, how do you feel as a medical professional with this kind of healthcare system? Do you feel like there should be a better way?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know what the answer is. I know it's extremely hard, for many, many different people to afford healthcare, but there's definitely got to be better options than what we have available here for people to get the care that they need. They just don't have access to what they need. And even if, people are coming into the emergency room with the coronavirus, but they don't require admission to the hospital, luckily their oxygen levels are stable and they're not that sick. Sometimes people are having challenges even just being able to afford over-the-counter Tylenol and ibuprofen to keep their fever down, or to, get cough medication, things like that, just to be able to help manage their symptoms at home. So it definitely makes it extremely hard with, not having good access to healthcare.
Now, you guys, like, are you considering a short? Are you experiencing a shortage of PPE? Do you have all the equipment, all the hospital beds, all the ventilators to handle a second wave in case it happened? Because I know what you said, it's not as crazy as it is in other locations, but you still have to be ready for that just in case it were to happen.
Right. So as of right now, we still have bed availability and ventilators available, but the PPE has definitely been a big struggle because, unfortunately, New York City was hit very, very hard, and talking openly about the lack of PPE, all of the hospitals, numerous hospitals around the country, just gathered up all of their PPE and locked it away from the entire hospital. And now it's like being rationed out little by little. And we have to be able to tell our supervisors exactly why we need it and who we're going to see, versus being able to just have 24/7, good protection, regardless of who's walking through the door. And the terrifying thing about this virus is that you just have no idea who has it. I mean, not everybody walking through the door says, I'm short of breath and I have cough and I have fever. There's a lot of people walking through the door saying, I have chest pain, or I have abdominal pain, or just other complaints that you don't always necessarily think of a viral respiratory illness. And next thing you know, they said, oh yeah, well, I've also had a cough too, and I feel short of breath and I've had a fever, and you don't have proper protection on, walking into that room and examining the person. So it's been a weird challenge where we do have PPE, but we're just not being given proper protection when we need it 24/7.
And it's crazy because I noticed some places are wearing things that look like rompers. They cover your whole body. And then I see other locations where flimsy tablecloth type of gowns. That must be very frustrating as a medical professional.
Yeah, we have very thin plastic, tablecloth type gowns that we wear. But really, in all honesty, the most important thing to protect yourself against the virus is to cover, what we call mucous membrane areas. So your mouth, your nose, your eyes, those are the entryways, the portalways around your face of how the virus can get into your body through the mucous membrane. And so the big issue of, why they always talk about washing our hands is because of the amount of times that we take our hands and touch our face throughout the day. You don't necessarily have to have your entire body covered head to toe when you're taking care of these patients. Having, a thin plastic gown on is really just to prevent it from getting all over your clothes, where you would then later on potentially touch your clothes and then touch your face. But the most important thing is keeping your hands covered, washing your hands, but then making sure that all the areas of your face are protected, with a full face shield and then a mask with a complete seal around your face.
Now, Rebecca, could you describe, the process of, because you said people don't even know that they're coming in, and have coronavirus, the symptoms there, you obviously know the symptoms that people are supposed to show and tell you. They're coming in, not telling you these things, but could you actually elaborate on the process of treating a coronavirus patient right now? From square one.
So it's definitely been an experience that I have never encountered before in the last 12 years of my career with any other illness. It's just such a wide variety of symptoms. You could see somebody who really doesn't look sick at all, but just says that they've had a sore throat or a cough for 1 or 2 days, and they test positive. And people keep talking about different age ranges, but from what I have seen, the age range really doesn't matter. I've seen people in their 60s and 70s, look fine, not that sick, and have coronavirus and have maybe sore throat, cough, headache for a day or two. And then I've seen people in their 30s and 40s not being able to breathe. And we check their oxygen level. Your normal oxygen level should be anywhere above 92, 93%, and their oxygen levels are in the 80s or 70s. And so we have to try to quickly screen these people to see if they have signs of what we call respiratory distress, if they're having trouble breathing and if their oxygen level is, less than 90%. And so as soon as that's identified, then we have to get them into a closed room. And we start off with trying to just put this non-rebreather face mask on them and giving them oxygen levels at really, 4, 5, 6 liters. But then if that doesn't work, that's, when we end up having to intubate them and put them on ventilator machines. But the scary part about that whole process is that normally this virus is spread by, respiratory droplet contact. So the whole 6 feet apart is because if somebody coughs or sneezes, that, those respiratory particles can't travel greater than 6 feet. Or if somebody wipes their nose or their mouth and then touches a surface that then you touch your face, that's how it can be spread. But when you're treating somebody in the hospital and you put them on what we call high flow oxygen, or if you give them a breathing treatment to try to help them breathe, that aerosolizes the virus, so it makes the viral particles kind of travel in the air.
Oh, linger in the air.
Almost like tornado wind around them. So then you have viral particles that are kind of catching a wave of, air being pushed around the room. And so that makes it, much easier to contract the virus if you're in the same room as that person, doing a breathing treatment or high flow oxygen, or the process of intubation, the process of putting them on the ventilators. And so they've tried to develop new protocols on how to put this plastic bag completely over the person's face while you're trying to put them on a ventilator machine, just to try to give you some kind of a shield in between the patient and your face, to try to decrease risk of transmission.
So you guys are literally learning on the fly right now. So this is insane.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, we have seen similar things in terms of, SARS infection, and there's lots of different strands of the coronavirus that we deal with on a regular basis, but just, never to this volume, to this extent, and the rapid onset of when somebody starts to feel sick to when all of a sudden they really have trouble breathing and they can't breathe on their own, they need to be on a machine. It just happens so quickly with this virus. I've never seen anything like that before.
Wow. That sounds intense. Jesus Christ. And, social distancing is important then. I mean, we really shouldn't be congregating until things really and until the contact tracing is done and people can really see who might have been in contact with, who's not in contact with it. And it's, it's very disconcerting that, the economy is taking precedent over public health. And it's worrisome because that's putting you guys at risk. It's putting a stress on the healthcare system. And I mean, do you even get a chance to like rest? I know that you said it's less of a population, where you are, but still, you never know. You could be called somewhere else because they may need you,
So I am not then, exhausted to the point anywhere near New York City healthcare providers. We are definitely getting chances to rest. We have, plenty of staff right now to where we're not having to pick up extra shifts or cover extra hours. But if we don't social distance, that will definitely change for everybody. I mean, social distancing is so important in order for us to, get rid of this virus without, killing thousands and thousands of more people. And it ends up, hurting the economy so much more if we open things up way too early and this virus starts to spread around again and getting that second wave. It's just going to be exhausting for everybody, economically and all of the healthcare providers. But luckily right now, I've definitely been in a good position to where, I'm working my shifts, getting through things, being able to get home and spend time with my family. And, it's been okay. I've just been worried about all of the providers in New York City because I feel like they have been exhausted beyond a point I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, they have been. It's been crazy over here. As of today, we've had 231 deaths. It's subsiding, but it's still nuts. But another thing that's nuts, Rebecca, that I've been hearing is something called pediatric multi-system inflammatory syndrome that seems to be affecting, the younger population. And it's apparently it's due to coronavirus. Have you seen any of that? We have 64 cases here in New York. Have you heard about that or anything? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so we have heard of a few different cases in the area, and that was definitely, a big concern in the beginning when they just kept talking about how this virus is only affecting mainly the elderly population, because it just doesn't make any sense. Viruses don't follow any rules. There's no virus in the world that is only going to affect one particular age group or one particular, subset of patients. Any virus can infect any human host at any time. And so it's just a matter of time before you actually start seeing those cases reported and start seeing the damaging effects. And especially, there is people of all ages that are immunocompromised, but when kids are under the age of 90 days, they have absolutely no immune system. Their immune system is still trying to develop. And so if a virus hits a baby like that, it can be completely devastating. But we're starting to see more and more cases now, and even just, pediatric populations that are a few months old to a few years old. And that's the really strange thing about this virus is that one person can have such minimal symptoms and not even really realize that they're sick. And the next person can, die within a few hours or a day or two of contracting the virus. It's just such a wide variety of symptoms that it's really just terrifying, which is why we have to social distance to try to keep everybody safe, because everybody is at risk, not just the elderly.
Yeah, and when you hear people say, "Oh, everyone dies," at some point, it's undermining everything that you stand for. You went to school, you bust your hump to be part of this, to be part of this medical world, and this society to help people get better. And then, when you hear people say these kind of things, it's like, what am I doing this for? Like, how stressful must that be on you?
It's so frustrating. I was watching the news and watching people protest about wanting to, reopen economy again, and they had these signs saying sacrifice the weak. And it's just so frustrating because it's not the weak. The people that are dying are not weak. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason as to why one person gets detrimentally ill and one person has minimal symptoms. I've seen people with no medical history. They don't have any, compromised immune system, and they end up having to be on a ventilator. And yet, I've seen people in their 60s and 70s who do have a history of high blood pressure and diabetes and high cholesterol. And, they're sick for a few days, but then they clear the virus. So there's, it's not weakness if you get severely ill from this virus. And the fact that people are just being just so ignorant about this and just lack of care of humanity, it blows me away. I just cannot believe it. And I feel like they would definitely be singing a different tune if it was, their friend or family member.
And that's the thing. This is a lottery, and it could be your friend, your family member, your spouse. It could be anyone. And, people they don't even want to wear masks. They're letting people go outside and they don't even want to wear masks, at least to protect each other while they're allowed to hang out within 6 feet of space. It's just mind-boggling, And I really have to, thank people like you who are seeing these things and are still being so professional about the way you're doing things, because I feel like people are listening more to conspiracy theorists. And I saw something where they're burning down cell phone towers because apparently the coronavirus came from 5G radiation, but they won't wear a mask. It is really disconcerting the humane, the lack of humanity that people are relaying in the public right now. It's sad. And I want to go to one more thing about the corona situation and what you've been noticing. What are some of the treatment plans for people that go out of recovery? Because you get it, but then you also have to take care of yourself. What are you telling people that are actually surviving about the virus and how to take care of themselves?
So if they're not sick enough to require hospitalization, the main treatment is really just managing fever and staying hydrated. So your body will use up all of its electrolytes and fluid with trying to, use all your immune system cells to fight off infection. And so you have to drink lots and lots of water, manage your fever with Tylenol and Motrin, because fever drives the majority of the symptoms. It drives your headache, your body aches, feeling really weak and tired and fatigued to where you can't even get to your refrigerator to get a glass of water. If you take Tylenol or Motrin to get your fever down, then you at least feel well enough to try to get up and move around and keep yourself hydrated. So those are the most important things. In terms of treatment for the hospitalized patients, it's still such a learning process. I mean, at the end of the day, we really have no idea whether these different, antiviral drugs that we're trying have any benefit. There'll be a small subset of patient population where they showed improvement, where they were able to get off the ventilator in a shorter amount of time compared to other patients. But then you look at another hospital that, kind of did a similar type study with these antivirals and didn't get the same results. So it hasn't been really consistent across the board with these antivirals that we're trying. But because we don't have anything else, we're kind of at a point where it's at least try something. We got to try some of these antivirals and just see, because these people don't have any other options right now.
Now, were you trying hydroxychloroquine at all?
Yeah. So as of right now, all of our hospitalized patients are getting the hydroxychloroquine right now.
Okay.
If they're sick enough to be in the hospital, that means that they're having respiratory distress and not, being able to breathe on their own and require oxygen supplementation. And so we give them that medication as soon as they're admitted. Now, I mean, we've definitely had quite a few people die in the hospital. The majority of people who end up having to go on a ventilator, unfortunately, end up dying. But, there has been a small patient population that has been able to be discharged from the hospital after being admitted. But all of them got the medicine, so it's just so hard to say whether or not it worked or not.
Oh, wow. It's like a literal crapshoot. That's crazy, man. That's insane.
Yeah.
But, I really appreciate, what you've been doing, Rebecca. I've always appreciated your passion for what you do. For any young woman or young man that, is aspiring to be just like you and in a position like you, could you really explain to them, how you got to the level of professional that you've arrived to?
So, once you start volunteering in hospitals and, being in the medical community as a student, you kind of learn quickly on whether or not that's really something you could see yourself doing for the rest of your life. And, some people can hack it or they can't. And I could never see myself doing anything else. I love it. And I know that there's a lot of risk involved, but, this is definitely a very rare situation where, we're seeing things that we've never really seen before. Usually it's not this scary and intense, and just the feeling of being able to help people when they are at their absolute weakest moment is just the most, gratifying thing I have ever experienced. And people are not always grateful for it. People are oftentimes scared and frustrated and upset that they're sick and not feeling well, and oftentimes end up taking it out on you. But you just have to keep telling yourself that, you're doing the right thing. You're out there helping people and you're making the world a better place. And so it definitely makes you feel very good at the end of the day, regardless of what ends up happening.
We're talking to Rebecca Powell, emergency medicine physician assistant at St. David's Round Rock Hospital out in the Austin area. And, Rebecca, I mean, you went through a crazy struggle to get here too. You lived in New York essentially by yourself, and you were a transplant, you weren't originally from New York. And, it makes me proud to see that all the struggle that you've been through, and you've become this amazing person with all this, with all this knowledge and really a passion for it. Is that something you try to, rub off on the people that you work with as well? Like, do you compare, battle stories of how you got to where you got to, just to keep yourselves, at least, a little entertained while you're dealing with this craziness?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my colleagues, also have their own personal battle stories of how they got to where they are. But
Rebecca was my doctor, by the way, for a long time before I had any health insurance or could afford any health insurance. Sorry, just had to say that, You saved my life.
I mean, it's, I've been the provider for majority of the friends and family, just because it's really hard to access medical care, especially right now. But yeah, I mean, it was absolutely crazy. It was crazy just picking up everything and moving from San Diego to New York City. And I was absolutely terrified when I first moved there. It was this like huge giant city that I felt like I was probably going to get swallowed whole. But ended up making it, through PA school. Yeah. And, working in the hospitals in New York has definitely been one of the best experiences in terms of my strength as a provider. I know I got from working in New York City. That's a fact. I learned so much. I worked in some of the busiest hospitals there. I worked on liver transplant unit at New York Presbyterian Hospital. And that is, what made me the provider I am today. And so I just really, really feel for all of the healthcare providers in New York City, and just hope that everybody is trying to, give their love and support to any healthcare provider in New York City, because they need as much as they can get right now.
Now, what would you tell any of the students that have to take school loans to do this kind of line of work? You know, would you tell them, look, it's worth it? Would you tell them like, nah, it's not worth it? You know, it's not worth the monetary investment? Because that's another thing a lot of, people worry about, the monetary investment that you have to put in on top of the time and energy you have to spend to reach this level of success in this medical world.
It's absolutely worth every penny. I am still, over $100,000 in debt till this day.
It's all good.
And it's fine. I will continue to pay off my student loans for the rest of my life, but it's the best decision I have ever made, worth every single penny. Definitely there's better ways to go through school in a more, less expensive fashion. I chose to go to New York City and live in one of the most expensive cities in the country. But it was an amazing experience, but definitely worth every penny of the student loan.
Well, I hope you get that reprieve they're talking about. I think all healthcare workers involved in this should get immunity from paying, or they should get their student loans absolved for sure. You don't think so? Like, come on, this is crazy. Instead of hazard pay, eliminate my student loan debt. I've grinded. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially for New York City healthcare workers. I think that all of them should not have to pay their student loan tax.
I agree. I'm going to start that wave. I'm telling you, I'm going to start the movement for you guys, man. Let everybody know. Watch the Angel of Words podcast. Every single week, I'm like, hey, everybody's student loan should be absolved, and we're just going to start a movement because this is insane. Yeah. You have ignorant people not giving a fuck. It's, and sorry for my French, but I just don't comprehend it. I've been quarantined myself for 65 days. I don't leave my crib unless it's to shoot the show, and the studio is not too far from where I live. I don't see anyone. And I do it at times where I know no one's going to be outside. But this is absolutely ridiculous. You're putting our healthcare workers at risk. And if there is no ammunition in a war, if there are no bullets, if there are no guns, if there are no resources, guess what? You lose the war and you lose the country. And people really need to understand that. This is not a political thing. This is not an economic thing. This is a public health, so we can continue living the lives that we do and trying to achieve the goals that we want to achieve and making the money that we're crying about, And one more thing, have they absolved, not absolved, but have they given moratoriums for people that can't pay mortgages out there in Texas? I'm curious.
They are, they're doing like a different type of thing. I guess there's different options you can apply for to either put your mortgage on hold and it doesn't accrue interest.
Yeah.
Depending on your situation, or they give you like a few months to where you don't have to make, your rent or mortgage payments. So there's definitely been a lot of different options for people out here that have been struggling, which is a really nice thing. I don't know if they're actually doing that, in other states as well.
Yeah, we got a moratorium over here lasting through the middle of August. But Rebecca Powell, look, I want to say one thing. Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going through it, and eventually you'll see the other side. My prayers are with you. Thank you so much for the service. Thank you so much for the information and the knowledge that you dropped today on the Angel of Word podcast. And give my best to every medical professional that you speak to. Let them know, watch the podcast. If anyone wants to talk to me as well, and they want a voice for the people, and they feel frustrated about what's going on, they could always contact me. But I really appreciate you being on. Thank you for dropping the knowledge, love, and I'll continue to keep a lookout.
Thank you.
You take care of yourself, okay? God bless.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye. I hope you enjoyed my interview today with emergency room physician assistant Rebecca Vasquez. And my people, like I said before, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you want to listen to us, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can catch me and my shenanigans on social media at Angel of Words ENT. Thank you for tuning in, my people.